Good morning. Are you excited? I'm so excited because we are beginning Genesis chapter 37, and in the coming days and weeks, we will be studying the incredible life of Joseph. And so we begin in Genesis chapter 37. The Bible tells us he's only 17 years old. He's tending the flocks with his brothers. But it tells us the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah. And he brought back to his father a bad report. Now, some people think he's just being a teenage tattletale, but we know that Joseph was a man of character. The Bible doesn't tell us what these brothers were doing. Maybe they were stealing from their father. Maybe they had been sucked into the ways of the world around them. But it must have been serious enough that Joseph felt like his father should know. And so that's going to create bad blood between Joseph and his brothers. It's going to get worse. Verse 3 tells us that Israel, remember Jacob, loved Joseph more than any of his other sons. Why? Because he was born to him in his old age. Also because he was the son of his favorite wife, Rachel. And he made him a coat of many colors. I have a very boring white-looking shirt. I should have put on a colorful shirt for this Devo. The NIV actually just calls it an ornate robe. The Hebrew word is difficult to translate, but whether it was brightly colored or it was ornate, the point was clear. Joseph was his father's favorite. Now, Jacob should have known better because he knew what it was like to grow up in a home where there was favoritism. You might remember his father showed favoritism towards Esau. Jacob should have known better, but it was clear to everyone that Joseph was his favorite. If you're a parent, always treat your children the same. Love them the same. Don't ever let one child feel like they're less than another. Well, the scripture says that in verse 4, when the brothers, remember he has 11 brothers, saw that their father loved Joseph more than them, they hated him, would not even speak a kind word to him. There's a lot of tension in this family. So they won't even speak kindly to Joseph. 11 brothers hating him. Look, think about this family. You have 4 different mothers to 12 children. There's Rachel and Leah, and then 2 concubines, and the 4 mothers have 12 children, and Joseph now is the favorite. I mean, talk about dysfunctional. There's a lot going on here. But now Joseph has a dream that's really going to irritate his brothers. He has this dream that they're binding sheaves of grain, and Joseph's sheaf stands upright, and all of the other sheaves bow before him. And it was clear to the brothers what he meant, that one day he would rule over them. Then he has a second dream. And in his second dream, the scripture says, this is in verse 9, he had, there's noise, construction outside. He had a dream that the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were bowing down to him. The sun and the moon, that would represent his mother and father. The 11 stars, that would represent his brothers. So now he says, even my mom and dad, everyone is going to bow before me one day. Of course, we know the rest of Genesis. We know the story. We know what happens in Egypt. We know this to be true. But after this, oh my goodness, the hatred went to an entirely different level. Verse 11 said his brothers were jealous, but his father kept this in mind. Perhaps Joseph would have been wise not to share this dream with his brothers who already hated him. Hey, one day, all of you will bow before me. Probably would have been wise not to share that. But in Joseph's defense, when God gives you a dream of what your future would be like, you would think you'd be able to share it with those closest to you. You'd think you'd be able to share it with your family. And yet in hindsight, maybe it would have worked out for Joseph to share it with just his father and his mother, and perhaps not the brothers who hated him. But God had a plan. what you're going to see tomorrow, what happens to him when he ends up in an Egyptian prison. Everything was going according to God's plan. For you, I want you to remember that God has a plan for your life. Sometimes he will reveal it to you, and probably not in a dream while you're sleeping at night. I thought I had this amazing sermon idea. I woke up in the middle of the night because I had a dream. Oh, that's going to be so good. And then in the morning, in the light of day, when I was fully awake, I thought, that is the craziest thing in the world. But at least you know how pastors are. We even dream about sermons when we're asleep. Don't expect it to be a dream as you're sleeping, but God reveals his will to us through his word and in other ways. And when you have a vision, an exciting vision of your future, you might want to be careful who all you share that with initially. Make sure it's someone who knows you well. Don't cast your pearls before the swine. And I don't think Joseph fully understood what this dream would mean. He just knew that God had a plan for his life. You're not Joseph. You're you. But God has a plan for your life as well. And I think if you could see it, if you could see what that plan looks like, you'd be so excited. Tune in tomorrow. This story is going to be incredibly dramatic. It's about to get really good and relevant for where we live. Hey, have a blessed Monday.